All right, welcome to the Flip the Switch podcast, where the switch was not flipped today. The Eagles losing 17-9 to the Seattle Seahawks, ending their season full of injuries and frustration. Dad, how do you feel?
Oh, for the first podcast we're doing here, it's going to be filled with a lot of disappointment on all fronts. I'm feeling deflated. Where do you want to start?
Let's just start with how absolutely dirty of a hit that was by Clowney on Wentz, and then there was no flag. That was extremely frustrating.
It's frustrating. Let's even back it up further. Obviously, it's been a not much of a joyride of a season, basically scraping into the playoffs at 9-7, winning the last four games over basically garbage teams in the Giants, the Redskins, and Cowboys. Sadly, coming into today, had we filmed this beforehand, I would have said clearly you've got to start the game better, but we continued the same exact trend where we do nothing in the first half. And today we had 3 points in the first half, I believe. Same trend against the Giants, the Redskins, Cowboys, just the inability to do anything on offense early. We somehow magically seem to be able to generate yards and move the ball in the second half, but then the trend of just very rarely, capitalizing on it. The last game against the Giants, if you look at the final score, it's 34-17, but that game was basically 17-17 at almost at the end of the third quarter. Today, I've said it a million times, I mean a derogatory sense, but field goals are for losers, and the teams that kick field goals lose. Their first field goal was from a decent range, like I think 45, 46. But the second and third field goal, they should have capitalized with touchdowns. They had first and goal on the 5 on one of those. Um, the opportunities in the second half were there. The defense, for the most part, when you give up 17 points, this has been a trend. You should be able to win. We did it against the Patriots. We did it against the Seahawks the first time. But the frustrating part is that we don't finish drives in the second half, and we seem to not do anything in the first half. So it's frustrating in the sense that whatever adjustments they're making at halftime, why aren't we making those adjustments at the start of the game? I know a lot of coaches, and Doug Peterson is one of them, go off their script, but scripting these first plays doesn't seem to work for us in the first half because we were just a horrible first half team. Now, mind you, we didn't turn the ball over today, but just not good enough. The defense holds them to 17 points, but the things that I told Jax here on coming into the game, there will be one play where we miss a tackle, where there will be huge yardage,
Craven LeBlanc.
just like New England game, just like the Seattle game, and Craven LeBlanc misses a tackle. They run 40 yards down to the 5. They convert a touchdown. And I said there'll be at least one play where they stretch the field and the safety's up and they blow the coverage, and that's how they scored their other touchdown. I mean, they had a couple other throws too. Anybody knew that the end of the game that when they had trips out to the right, they were going to throw deep, and you got three defenders there and they all just look at each other. If I have to see the defense celebrate one more turnover or one more incomplete pass, like you're somehow winning the game, get a lead in the game before you start acting like that. I'm so tired of these posing for pitchers. You're a 9-17 team that scraped into the playoffs. You're not good enough to do that. We don't need to pose. This isn't the Super Bowl year where you're running over people and you finish 13-3 in the regular season. You were lucky to make the playoffs this year because you played poorly most of the season, just giving games away. To the Lions early in the year, obviously to the Dolphins later in the year.
My gosh.
You only can give away so many games, and this is why we were able to make that run 2 years ago, is because we had home field and you only had to play two games to get to the Super Bowl. What we're stuck with now is the frustration of, even if we'd won today, you're trying to go on the road for two games, which is very, very rarely done, and where you get to the Super Bowl. I think it's only been done twice. Um, we weren't going to do that, but having said that, today was winnable. And
Despite how bad we played, it was winnable.
we play. The common theme is we just gave up big plays, and the offense was just so inept in the first half all year, just so inept. And they make some changes, and McCown came in and actually did an. I can't fault him because obviously he wasn't even supposed to play and hasn't played in quite a while. The only problem I had with McCown was on the fourth down play with less than 2 minutes, and he took the sack. It's like, You got to just you got to throw the ball. You got to if they intercept it, fine. I mean, then they get the ball out on the 20. You know, um, there's less than 2 minutes of the game. Maybe you get a pass interference call. Maybe you don't. But you
Got the
cannot.
pass interference call, which
But
got
you
us down there in the first
cannot
place.
take the sack. I mean, I don't understand too why cornerbacks can't just turn around ever to look at a ball. Russell Wilson overthrows somebody and then the guy can't catch it, and Jalen Mills is celebrating like he did something. Well, if the ball wasn't overthrown, you would have been burned. You know, first round, second round, third round, they've got to pick cornerbacks because, as far as I'm concerned, Jalen Mills, Cravion LeBlanc,
Sidney Jones.
well, Sidney Jones, I don't know why he doesn't get a chance. I don't think you give up on him yet. He hardly even gets on the field. When he does get on the field, you've got you spent a high second round pick on him. You've got to see if he's able to be able to do anything.
He made the play versus Dallas.
He did, and he made another play. But I don't know why he doesn't get on the field. It's not like you got Deion Sanders out on the corner there. You got Jalen Mills and Ronald Darby and a bunch of other guys. And I'm so tired of the safeties coming up and missing plays and guys running wide open. I mean, every game it was the same big plays that they gave up. I mean, overall, the defensive front line did a great job. Hats off to Fletcher Cox and the rest of the guys there. Another fault I would say would easily be not spying Russell Wilson from the start. I mean, the one play that he burned you where you did spy him with Jenkins, you also had a linebacker there spying. But he had a 22-yard run, he had a 10-yard run, and a 15-yard run. What made Wentz so great 2 years ago, and even his first year, was that he would do those things. He would pick up those. The discouraging thing about the hit today is obviously I think it was helmet to helmet, but again, he doesn't slide feet first. And when he got hurt in Los Angeles a couple years ago, he didn't go head first. If you're going, he didn't slide feet first. If you're going to keep going that way, it's a greater risk that you're going to get hurt. And that's 2 out of 3 times. They used to say, well, Michael Vick would always kind of fall head first because they couldn't teach him how to slide head first or slide feet first. That's ridiculous. You're a professional athlete. Learn to slide. Learn to give yourself up. McNown, to his credit, McCown, to his credit, later on in the game, he actually did slide feet first. To avoid getting cheap shotted. Overall, it's a horribly disappointing way to end the season, but not surprising at all. They made the same mistakes on offense, and they gave up the same ridiculous poor tackling and big plays on defense. And you combine those two and you get a loss. Now, I mean, would I have loved to see the game play out with Wentz? Absolutely. Am I 100% sure it plays out any different, even if he plays? I'm not, because we had Wentz play the whole season. Now, it's easy to sit here and say, we had no Alshon Jeffrey, we had no Nelson Aguilar, we had no Deshaun Jackson. And bigger issues today, which I think hurt our run game, is we didn't have, Brooks or Lane Johnson on the side either. You're missing your whole right side of the line, which is disastrous, especially in a playoff game. And we did struggle to establish any kind of running game today. I don't remember how many total yards we had in the game running. I know we busted off a couple of decent chunks, but for the most part, we weren't able to establish any of that. And obviously, along with cornerback, your biggest need has got to be a receiver that can stretch the field next year.
Miles Sanders, 14 carries for 69 yards. Boston Scott, 6 carries for 25 yards. And Josh McCown, 5 carries for 23 yards.
So, I mean, you're a little over 100 yards, which is actually better than I remember. But they did run a couple of decent chunk plays. But, these games, they lose in the first half. They lose these games in the first half. And when you fail to put touchdowns up, you can't go first and goal at the 5 and kick field goals. You just can't. You got to be better down in the red zone, and we just weren't all year. So I mean, I can't sit here and say I'm surprised, but I'm disappointed because at the end of the day, it's just another wasted season, and I don't want to sit here and just say it's injuries, because even in spite of those injuries, they were more than capable of winning today, and they just didn't get it done. When you need the defense to get off the field on a 3rd and 15, they don't get off the field. And then a 3rd and 11, and they don't get off the field. And it's just these are mistakes that cost them last year when they finished 9-7. In the Carolina game when they were up 17-0 or 17-3, the Tennessee game where they were up, both of those games that they blew, and couldn't stop a 4th and 15 in the Tennessee game. Just mistakes like that, and you end up 9-7, and your road is that much more difficult to get to where you want to be. I could sit here and be optimistic about next year, knowing we can fix some of these issues and a lot of these guys will be back and a lot of these guys will be healthy. But at the same time, I'm just sitting here. Who's to say they don't get hurt again? So if you can't clean up what was a porous secondary, and the receivers obviously got hurt, but Howie Roseman didn't do anything to fix it at the trade deadline. Gross overestimation of what we had, and credit to Greg Ward for coming in and doing a great job for the reps that he got, and credit to Boston Scott for coming in. Um, Jordan Howard was active the last 2 weeks. I don't even know if he stepped on the field more than 2 or 3 plays in the 2 games combined. And before he got hurt, he was actually doing quite well. So maybe he wasn't healthy enough to play and they just activated him, but completely went away from that aspect of the game too. So I know Doug Peterson faced a lot of challenges with injuries and stuff, but I would have liked to see more up tempo a lot more of the time than we did, because that's how we seem to thrive under Foles, and that's when Wentz seems to play his best. And the first halves are ultimately where it comes down to the end, and you look at the mistakes, but really these games are lost in the first half. And this season was really lost the second game of the year when they threw that game away to Atlanta, when Jeffrey got hurt and Deshaun Jackson got hurt, and the terrible loss to Detroit. Just a comedy of errors in winnable games, and they didn't get it done.
Carson Wentz 1 for 4 with guess how many yards?
I don't know, 6.
3. You were close. Josh McCown steps in, goes 18 for 24, 174 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, but about 5 drop snaps for the Eagles. What do you think about that?
Turnovers, I think we had 4 in the last game against Seattle, 5, and then we recovered one of them, so 4 that we lost. If you'd have told me that we would have split and gone even with the turnovers, I would have really liked our chances. Even to the end, we couldn't even get him. He just knew that last play was going deep. Obviously Jim Schwartz knows more about defense than the rest of us, but my gosh, sometimes you just sit there and you know what's coming, and you don't understand why the players on the field can't see it. There's 3 guys over there, and they're all looking at each other, pointing fingers, and one guy just runs right by him, and that's the game. But it's a somewhat sadly fitting end to a completely forgettable season that will be remembered for nothing other than injuries, basically, and failures to overcome
the
those
practice
injuries.
Squad stepping up.
Well, credit to those guys, but credit to no credit to fixing some of these things. Deshaun Jackson not getting the surgery after week 2, basically, is just will go down as one of the biggest mistakes of the year. Unbelievable that he didn't get it done. He could have been playing 6 weeks ago now. He sits out 8 weeks, comes back, plays 3 snaps, 4 snaps, and then he's done. It's a wash. I mean, the season's over. It's a loss. Philly comes to Arizona next year. I'm not optimistic because Philly doesn't travel well to the West Coast in terms of their performance. So I hope that they pull it together next year, and Wentz learns to slide feet first. I don't want to see anyone get a concussion. I thought the play should have been penalized. If you look at it again, obviously he puts the crown of his helmet right into Wentz, but maybe they're not going to call that if he's diving head first. But to me, it looked like a penalty, and it changes the game. I mean, obviously we'd rather play that full game with Wentz. Maybe we win, maybe we lose, but now we never know, and the season's down the drain and gone.
Clowney was obviously the biggest factor for Seattle too. So a lot of Eagles fans called for him to be thrown out of the game after what was a dirty hit. I'm not sure if you agree with that. I don't even know if I do.
Chris Collinsworth just goes on, and it's like
about the Seahawks injuries.
Well, no, talking about how great Clowney was. Most of the plays he made, no one was blocked. It's not a great play if you make a tackle when you're not blocked. It's what you're supposed to do. That's why you're paid a lot of money like he is. It's like there's great plays that happen on the field, and then there's bad mistakes. And the offensive line, again, you're missing 2 huge pieces. You're gonna screw things up, and they obviously did. It'll take a while for it to sink in, but there won't be anything else to watch as far as the Eagles go for a long time. And there's all this hope and all this talk this year, and it started to borderline on the dream team year where we're going to be great. And
Steve Young.
Going into next year, I'm not gonna have any expectations, because you get hurt, your season changes, and in the NFL, everybody deals with injuries. Obviously, I feel like we had a lot more this year than some teams, and in terms of crucial injuries. And but again, we didn't make the necessary adjustments to get the players in here to fix those issues, and we just didn't play well. So I can sit here and make excuses But at the end of the day, the guys on the field today didn't make enough plays.
Should Jim Schwartz be fired?
I don't know about Jim Schwartz. 17 points should be enough to win. Having said that,
He made a lot of mistakes this year.
Having said that, I jockey back and forth. Is it Jim Schwartz's fault that Crevion LeBlanc missed that tackle and that we missed the tackle in the New England game and that we missed the tackle in the Seattle game because he's not on the field? Is it his fault that the safeties are coming up and blitzing, or is it his fault that they're confused? Maybe. If they're not understanding the formations on the field, then simplify it. But man, we got torched deep by everybody this year. We gave up circus plays, trick plays, long plays to everybody, and it can't happen. So if you're susceptible to that, you just can't bring your safeties up. You just have to keep them deep. Way too many times we just got exposed on defense. Having said that, the defense is giving up 17 points should be enough to win. But it wasn't today because you kick field goals, you lose.
So you think we covered the Eagles well enough? You got anything else to say? You stole all the words out of my mouth.
I don't have anything else on the Eagles right now. Just disappointment. Hugely disappointing.
Well, like you said earlier, moving on to the Flyers now, the Eagles don't travel well on the West Coast. Neither do the Flyers. Their last win coming on the 29th of December over the Ducks. They have since lost to the Golden Knights, Kings, and Coyotes, giving up 16 goals in the last 3 games. We were at the game against the Coyotes yesterday. Absolutely pathetic effort. Very frustrating game to watch. Carter Hart let in some very soft goals. That was extremely disappointing. And, just our offense wasn't there. When Tyler Pitlick and Justin Braun score for you, you think, where were the other players? What do you think?
Before we started this road trip, actually, I was optimistic in the season so far, and we didn't bury ourselves like we have seemingly every year for the last 5 or 6 years. So we get off to a decent start. We're third in the division for quite a while, and sometimes jockeying up to second. Well, coming into this road trip, I stated we would go 2-4 at best. We're currently 1-4. So we come out with, you play like garbage against the Sharks teams. It's not very good this year. You give up 6 goals. You come back and you beat Anaheim 2-1. You feel like you're going to regroup. Then you give up another 5 to Los Angeles. You almost fight your way back into it. 4 in the first again.
4 in the first.
Then you give up another 5 spot to Vegas. Actually, they gave up 6, right, to Vegas?
Or no, 5.
5. And then you come into Arizona, and we're at the game last night, and the game's over at the end of the first period. You're down 3-0. You end up losing 6-2. I mean, it's an insane road trip, but they just, living out here in Arizona for the last 15 plus years, Philly teams don't travel well here. The Eagles haven't won here in forever. They just play like garbage when they're here. The Flyers, they've had intermediate success, but their West Coast trips are always subpar. The Sixers West Coast trips, the teams just don't travel even when you're at your best and you're supposed to be beating these teams. The Phillies come in, they haven't done very well recently here, routinely losing 2 out of 3 to the D-backs.
They did lose 2 out of 3.
The Flyers, they go to Carolina, and then they got a stretch of 6 out of 7 at home. I mean, the season, Carter Hart's like 9-2 at home and like 2-9 or something on the road. It's ridiculous. But you can't. Great teams, are going to win 75% of your games at home. They're going to at least go 50-50 on the road. We're not even close to that. We're just not getting it done. And I'm tired of hearing them say, it'll change, or we need to have meetings, and it was the same garbage meetings the Sixers are having, the Flyers are having, and we're gonna change it. And I'm tired of them saying, we're gonna win this one, and every win goes for Oscar. Like, that's great, but go out and play like it. Don't dedicate victories to somebody and then just go out and just tank. And then they don't look like they even. I watched Giroux the whole game last night. I could barely even tell that he was on the ice. He's got to be a difference maker, and he is. So I don't know if guys are playing with injuries or what, but he's too good of a player not to notice more out on the ice. You've got him, and you've got Voracek, and you've got JVR, and you've got Hayes, and you've got guys that are getting big money. And
especially
there's just
Hayes.
No way you should be down 3-0 at the end of the first, and that's the 4th road game on this road trip out of 5 games where they've basically been buried after the first period. And I don't know. It's just like the Eagles can't play the first half, the Flyers can't play the first period. I don't know if they think they're going to magically turn on a switch when they get back home and they have 6 out of 7 at home, but it's certainly not going to be easy when that first home game, I believe, is against Washington next Wednesday.
Yeah.
You know, you lose. They've lost a lot of points, you know, and obviously there's a ton of the season left, but it's it's a bad omen because what they've gone through right here is very characteristic of what the way they've started previous years, and I don't see them having any magical answers to get out of it. They've brought up most of their guys, switched them back and forth from the AHL. You know, they've come up. Frost is back down.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see him back up, honestly, because I think he can make plays, but I know that he wasn't getting the point production that they expected. There isn't anybody else coming. You know, they're stretched pretty tight as far as the salary cap goes. They've called up most of their best players, so you're gonna have to ride home with most of what you have right now. And to be honest with you, the ceiling for this team I see is maybe a 7 or 8 seed, and you know, obviously in the NHL anything can happen and injuries can happen to other teams. But right now we're a fringe playoff team. At best, I think we get a 7 or 8 seed and we lose in 6 games in the first round.
Flyers are 5th in the Metro behind the Capitals, Penguins, Islanders, and Hurricanes.
How many points back?
The Flyers have 49 points, Hurricanes have 50, Islanders 53, Penguins 55, and the Capitals up there at 63.
So, I mean, you look at this slide right here. You win 2 of those games, and you're 4 points up, and you're there. But we'll see if they can turn the switch. You know, all the coaches in the past that they've had have not been able to turn the switch, and guys have funneled in and funneled out. And you know, whether it was Laviolette or Berube or
Berube, who went on to win a cup with St. Louis.
Or who was the interim guy?
Scott Gordon.
Scott Gordon last year. And we just we don't seem to be able to get it done. You know, I like Alain Vigneault, but we'll see what happens at the end of the year. But right now the Flyers are in a horrible funk, and it's not much fun to watch.
So through 42 games played, I blame Disney on Ice for their recent struggles. On to the Sixers now. The Sixers, you have some strong opinions about the Sixers.
I'm tired of Brett Brown. I think I said before this season again that the Sixers are going to get to the second round and they're going to be tossed and Brett Brown will be fired. I'm going to hold to that, and I'm going to reserve the right now to say that I'm not even so sure they get to the second round, because you're looking at Boston and Milwaukee, who have kind of cleared some space up at the top. And then you're talking about having Miami, who's better than people expected. Indiana, who's still better than people expected. Toronto is still up there. And then you've got Philadelphia, and you've got I'm missing one other team. But you've got 6 teams, you know, between that group right there. That
Bucks,
between
Celtics.
the Bucks, Celtics,
Heat, Raptors,
Sixers,
Pacers.
and Pacers. So if you don't get the 1 or 2 seed, which right now we're
a 5 seed.
We are, how many games back are we from the 2 seed? 4.5 back from the Celtics. So, you know, you're stuck. Let's say right now, if the playoffs started right now, we're what were we, 5 or 6?
5.
If we're a 5 seed, who are we playing in the first round?
Raptors.
Can we guarantee? Yeah, we have more talent on paper, but are we going to definitely beat them? No.
I feel like no one on the Sixers actually wants to play until the playoffs hit, and it's going to be dangerous, and it's going to be like the 2011 Phillies.
Nobody could bet money right now and say for sure that the Sixers would beat any of those 5 other teams in a 7-game series. And if you don't get the 1 or 2 seed, which it's highly unlikely that we are at this point, you're going to play one of those teams in the first round. You can lose to Boston in the first round. You can lose to Miami in the first round. You can lose to Toronto in the first round. You can lose to Indiana in the first round. And then the problem is you got to play another one of those teams in the second round, and then you're probably playing the Bucks in the third round. So while you're throwing away the regular season thinking you're going to be this amazing playoff team, which you're not going to be because it's not how it works, you're seeding yourself, and then you're going to end up playing 6 or 7 games in the first round just to try to get to the second round, wearing yourself down. By the time you get to the conference semis or the finals, I'm just tired of Brett Brown. This is his 3rd year. I'm sorry. I don't think he has what it takes to basically tell Embiid what he needs to do when he needs to do it.
Stop shooting threes.
Or Ben Simmons. Embiid has no business shooting more than
get in the post.
2 or 3. Obviously I'm not the first person to say this, but when Embiid plays 3-point line to 3-point line, they're not very good. When he plays rim to rim, they're a lot better team. He doesn't seem to be able to, in early December, he said, Simmons, I want you to shoot 1-3 a game. What has Simmons done since then? He hasn't shot any threes.
He's hit 2 threes.
But since that point, When he wanted him to shoot it, he hasn't shot any. When he wanted him to shoot one a game, make or miss. Simmons' inability to even just shoot up a 15-footer, make it or miss it, whatever's going on in his head, it really sets the team back. And I know he adds a lot of other things, but we don't have a shooting team. You're solely relying on Tobias Harris and Furkan Korkmaz to come out here, and they're not going to be great pure shooters every single game. I get tired of seeing Embiid labor up and down the court, and then he'll do a hustle play where he'll dive into the crowd to make it look like he's been hustling the whole game, but he's not. He's simply not hustling the whole game. It's not that hard to watch and see Embiid is, halving it most of the time. And great, if he thinks he just needs to be healthy for the playoffs and that's it, well, we're in for a rude surprise. And I think Brett Brown is done after this year. I think he's too close to Embiid. I think he's too close to Simmons. I don't think he can discipline them. I don't think he has the courage to take them out of the game when they don't listen. Tobias Harris earlier this year was 0 for 11 for 3. At what point do you just tell your player, don't shoot any more threes? Go for a mid-range, go down on the post, shoot a post up. I don't see those kind of adjustments with him. They're constantly talking about there's no cohesiveness within the locker room. Well, some of that starts with coaching, I don't think that he has the complete respect of the team, and I don't think that they're just going to turn it on in the playoffs. And ultimately, I think they lose in the second round and Brett Brown gets fired.
Sixers are apparently looking to trade some people. They're rumored to get Derrick Rose and one of your favorites, Marcus Morris.
Well,
you don't like.
I don't know. Rose is more of a backup point guard to me at this point.
He's not what he used to be.
He's not a pure.
Everyone knows that.
But what the Sixers need more than anything
is a pure scorer.
Pure shooting.
JJ Redick's gone.
Morris is going to come in and be like Al Horford. We already have a Morris, so unless we're trading Horford for Morris, it's basically the same player. They're both 3/4 players. Speaking of that, Horford, while I know his three-point shooting has improved, has been outside way too often, and he's been shooting at a poor percentage. We were told at the beginning of this year that the Sixers were going to be all about, they're going to be this old defensive team, and, it hasn't been anything like that. You don't have to watch them very much to see that they don't, their Achilles heel is the second quarter. The Eagles play a horrible first half. The Flyers play a horrible first period. For the Sixers, it's hands down the second period.
Eagles.
Almost every game, it's the second period with the Sixers where they're losing by 20 points in the quarter, and then they just come out. And maybe they make a run, but, in the NBA, it's the same story. It's always been. You get down 25, 30 points, yeah, you're going to make a run. You might get it under 10, but most of the time, 8 to 9 times out of 10, you're not going to finish the deal because it takes too much energy just to get back into it. So as far as them making a deal, whether they're going to trade Richardson, I don't know whether they're not going to trade Horford. No one's going to take the rest of his contract. I don't know what they expect to get for one of the Morris brothers. They definitely play with intensity. But you've got to bring somebody in that's going to change the locker room because I don't see Embiid or Simmons, the two best players on the team, leading the locker room. Or, credit to Simmons the last game. He had an amazing game. But I need to see that more than once a month where he's putting up close to 30 points. Richardson in that game was like 2 of 8 for 3. The league is live or die 3, but you've got to be able to recognize, hey, it's not our night on 3. Let's go into the post. And you've got one of the best big men in the league who's got a great low post game, who's got a great 15-foot jumper, who can hit free throws, and you just waste it because he's sitting out on the 3-point line. And then I know he 1 out of every 5 or 6 games, he'll make 3 or 4 of them. And to me, it's actually negative when he makes it because then he continues to stay out there. The bench obviously needs some help. Mike Scott's going to play really well once every 5 or 6 games. Trey Burke's going to play good 1 out of every 5 or 6 games, but they're just not giving you the consistency that you need. And when you get to the playoffs, I just don't see him being able to turn the switch. And maybe they get to do enough to get by the first round, but it's going to be a 6 or 7 game first round. And they're going to be tired, and they're not going to get out of the second round. When they lost to the Celtics 2 years ago, they should have won that series in 5. Blew 3 games down the stretch, and then they lost the series in 5. And obviously the Toronto game was lost in game 4 was because Embiid had diarrhea. They win that game, the series is over, and the Sixers win in 6. We don't have to sit here and listen to, hey, you laugh, but he had diarrhea. He couldn't play that game. Look at his numbers from that game. They were atrocious. We'll talk about that another day. But any other day, we win game 4 and then we win game 6 at home, and not everybody's sitting here talking about how Kawhi Leonard's the greatest player. They beat an unhealthy Sixers team in that game, and they beat an unhealthy Golden State team. So, to me, Toronto will go down as an anomaly of NBA champions.
Fluke. One last thing before we leave here. The Philadelphia Union have rebranded their USL team, the former Bethlehem Steel, are now called the Philadelphia Union 2.
Philadelphia Union too, huh?
I don't like it.
I didn't mind Bethlehem Steel.
I liked it.
Is that what all MLS teams are doing? Or are they just calling it the?
I have no idea.
Well,
I like
let's
the
talk
uniqueness.
about the Union real quick too. My gosh,
Jim Curtin.
I'm not a huge Jim Curtin fan. They got to the playoffs last year. They won a game finally. But it comes down to they've got to be willing to spend money to get better players. If they're not willing to spend money to take charter flights, which I'm tired of reading about, how they won't play for charter flights, why would they pay for players? Stop telling me that you're going to do stuff if you can't pay for them to fly to California on a charter flight. What kind of professional organization are you? Start putting some money out there. You want to win, you got to start putting some money out there. We've developed players and then we've let some of those players go. I guess Jim Curtin's bought himself another year, but to me, they've got to find a way to score. The Union, the running joke is, hey, what was the score of the Union game?
0-0.
1-1 or 0-0.
And Andre Blake.
They just don't have scores. You've got to have the scores. Andre Blake had his struggles, obviously.
I blame him. I play goalie for soccer. I blame him for me not wanting to come out.
He has some issues and not knowing when to come out, and he makes some mistakes. And I would think that they would be able to coach him a little bit better than that, hopefully. I mean, these aren't things that they can't possibly be seeing on film the same as us. So it comes down to this. Either they're not seeing it on film, which is impossible because I'm seeing it just watching it on TV, or the coaches themselves are not able to convey that message to the player, or the player just doesn't want to listen. And if the player doesn't want to listen, then you got to move on from that player, or you've got to get a coach that can get that message across. You want to hit on the Phils at all since we've hit everything else real quick?
Why not? Who do you think they should get? I mean, the pitching staff
Phils,
obviously isn't good enough. Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, old Jake Arrieta. It's
I just
pathetic.
wanted to cry last year that you were going in with Nola, a hurt Arrieta, Velasquez, Pavetta.
What is Matt Klentak thinking?
And he spent the money on the position players last year, and sadly right now, it's great. We went out, we made a signing, so we've got a 1 and a 2, or 118 million or something.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 guys right now with Nola and.
Didi Gregorius is short. Great.
Yeah, we've got him in short, but I'm concerned about the pitching staff because in the bullpen.
Who do we have in the bullpen?
Victor
Arano?
The last few years we've just missed. We've signed big contracts. Who did we sign? Hunter?
Pat Neshek. Tommy Hunter.
And
David Robertson,
who we still have to pay for this year. We signed Neshek and Hunter for 2-year deals that both have expired now. We paid them upwards of $30 million each for 2 years of nothing. Now we're paying Robertson, who has never hurt his whole career, basically, with the Yankees, who's hurt with us now. So you basically got, maybe, you're going to throw, honestly, I'd rather see Pavetta or Velasquez go into the bullpen and do long relief, or maybe they just combine in a starter, one of them. But neither of them can go deep. Neither of them can barely go 6 innings. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think Velasquez went 6 innings maybe twice last year. Pavetta maybe twice at best. I mean, this isn't the way that you're going to get it done with a shoddy bullpen. Those guys are good the first and second time through the lineup. Usually third time through the lineup, they're absolutely, garbage. So you've got Arrieta coming back this year as your number 3, which I'm not optimistic about. You can't possibly be worse than he was last year. But you're throwing Eflin as your 4. And you're throwing Velasquez or Pavetta, whichever one's healthy, as your 5. So basically all you've done is upgrade 1 of your starting pitching positions when you needed to upgrade 4 of them. You had Aaron Nola, who obviously had a down year last year. So you've got Aaron Nola, and you had 4 other ones that you would have ideally liked to upgrade. Obviously, Arrieta, I don't want him to even be my 3. I want him to be my 5. He obviously opted into his contract. This is obviously going to be his last year with us. There's nothing we can do about that. He basically gave us 2 or 3 good months that first year, and that's it. He hasn't given us, he's unhealthy. It's unfortunate, but these are the risks you take when you sign these guys. And there was a reason nobody else was signing him, and then we gave him $75 million for 3 years. So I like the signing of Wheeler for 118, I guess, but by no means am I ecstatic about it. That's what pitching costs these days. Going into the offseason, I didn't want to go after any of the super big names. I wanted to try to grab 3 or 4 of the smaller ones and hope that
missed
2
Cole
of them
Hamels.
worked out. I
with the
desperately want
Braves.
Cole Hamels. I wanted
That's
Cole Hamels when
he is going to
back
tear
from
us up.
Texas.
He is going to tear us
Cole
up.
Hamels will
this
beat
year.
us at least twice this year. We should have got him when he came back, and then we could have had him this year for 2 years, 30. I would have signed Hamels. Oh, you could have had Hamels and Baumgartner
And Wheeler.
Yeah, for under two basically,
For the
or
price of
close to.
Keuchel.
Well, you 118. Hamels signed a 1 year deal for 18 million. I think Baumgartner signed 4 for 60 or 4 for 75 or something like that. I wanted them to grab 3 or 4 guys for the price of what some people were paying for Cole or for who was the other guy that was out there this year, or Strasburg, who I didn't really think was going to leave either. So, but they grabbed one, and now there's really nobody left. Even Keuchel went somewhere on a 3-year deal that was reasonable. You could have signed Keuchel for like 3 for 50. You could have had Bumgarner. You could have had Hamels. All these guys for less than the cost that you would have gotten Strasburg or that. But to put it all in on one like they've done on Wheeler is risky again, because if he's hurt, guess what? It does you nothing. You got to get 3 or 4 guys and hope that 1 or 2 of them pan out at this point. Everybody we signed in the bullpen is terrible. Hopefully, I'm glad Hernandez is gone. I'm glad Franco is gone, because neither of them hustled, and I get so tired. The best offseason move the Phillies made is getting rid of Kapler. Everything else is secondary. What a clown show. If I had to watch that guy one more second make mistakes and sugarcoat lack of hustle and tell me how it was better for the team that lack of hustling players was good.
We were at the Padres game that Andrew McCutchen got hurt.
Put his buddy Sean Rodriguez out there on the field so he can get
who hits absolute nukes
so
in BP.
he can get more service time. Didn't even belong on the roster.
Ridiculous.
So I'm sure San Francisco fans, watch out. Sean Rodriguez is going to be on your bench this year. He's gone, and I like that Girardi will bring respect, and I like that he will bring a certain sense of discipline, which obviously nobody respected Kapler. Above all, the fans didn't respect him, let alone the players, because he just... You're either Philly type or you're not. And Kapler never was, and the fact that Klentak still wanted to keep him leads me to believe that Klentak doesn't really belong in Philly anymore either, because if you couldn't see the writing on the wall, I don't know what you're looking at in Philly if you thought that Gabe Kapler should have been there. I remember reading Middleton wanted to fire him at the middle of the year this year, and his gut was right and should have, but I'm glad that he got rid of him at the end of the year. I don't think we've done enough in pitching to be any better than maybe a second wild card this year, to be honest with you. I don't think that they will win the...
I don't think
constructed today.
I think the Braves, Nationals, then the Phillies, and we play the Nationals in the wild card.
I think the Nationals are going to be less this year. I don't think they can... They got on a magical run, and they rode some things that I don't think you're going to be able to run again in terms of streak, in terms of some luck in the playoffs, but everybody needs some
If the Brewers player in right field makes the play, they don't win that World Series.
Down 4-1. It's a big difference. If he fields that ball cleanly, at least keeps it in front of him. It's a different series. But the Phils, I don't know what they're waiting on. They've let some other people pass for what I thought were affordable contracts. They've decided to pass on those, and if they're going to go into the season counting on Arrieta, Eflin, Pivetta, and Velasquez as 4 of your 6 starters, I don't know why you're expecting any different result. I see maybe a second wild card at best, and if a couple other injuries hurt, I see maybe 83, 85 wins, which isn't going to be enough to get in. If everything rolls right, maybe you get a second wild card. But the team as constructed isn't good enough to win a World Series.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this extremely depressing episode of Flip the Script. Hopefully Philly teams can flip the script next week. We'll just have to see. But for now, see ya.
Signing off. It's got to be better sometime next week, because the Eagles season's over, which is terrible. And hopefully the Flyers and Sixers will